Welcome to 2 Cents Short of a Dollar, the show where we give our 2 cents and keep it 100. We're your host. That's Motiz, and I'm Rue. Today we're talking about Severance Season 2, Episode 8, getting real close to the finale. And this week they gave us a 37-minute episode. It came and it went. When I saw that, I thought it was a mistake. And then I started the program and it said 44 minutes. And I'm like, okay, that's better. But I don't know. I think that was like a glitch in the system. So it was a 37-minute episode, real quick episode. Started off kind of slow, but I felt like we got some huge reveals in the episode, right? So this one's called Sweet Vitriol, which if you look it up on the internet, like sweet vitriol translates to like diethyl ether, right? And now if you write down diethyl ether, right, it's kind of looks like it starts with D and ends with her, like Dieter Egan, you know?
Might be onto something.
So
Might be onto something. I did not know that. Okay.
yeah. So like, as I'm watching Severance, I try to make Severance notes. So I'm like, okay. But anyway, Shay, like I said, we get a lot about the ether. I don't know if it really has something to do with Dieter or is that a coincidence, but now, just last week we were speculating that in the Lumen logo, the drop, I first thought it was water. Then last week I'm like, it may be blood. Is it ether? Because ether seems to play a big role here, right? We're in Salt Neck, Harmony Cobell's hometown. So just initially, what were your initial thoughts going through the beginning of this episode?
There was a lot going on, right? And it was funny because we talked about it in our last video where if they do decide to, go into Cobell's story, the best time to do it is episode 8, and they delivered. So it was good that we kind of got a break from the main cast and kind of switched over to Mrs. Cobell, where she drives to her hometown and she goes into a bar, or I would say a cafe, diner, right? However you want to kind of describe the place. 3 members there, they kind of took a look. Seems like they, knew who Cobell was, especially one particular individual is her former, in Cobell's voice, colleague, right? Which it's kind of translated to they were former lovers in some sense, right?
And I think his name was like Hampton or something like that. I don't quite remember.
Some sort. Yeah, I forget his name, but nevertheless, the one immediate thing that I noticed was how run down the city was. And immediately you can see people kind of inhaling this ether, right? It seems like people are somewhat addicted to it. And the guy that we're referring to, he's also providing that to people who are visiting the diner, right? He's like, hey, he's selling it, which was confirmed by Cobell. So, you could tell instantly that they knew each other. She's like, yo, I need your help. And he's just like, all right, and Cobell in her own fashion, right, is like, she's always steadfast and she rules with an iron fist. You know what I mean? Just basically telling him in so many words, like, yo, it's either you going to help me, but I'm not going to be a punching bag for your resentment in so many words. So I'll stop there. But what were your thoughts between, I guess, the dynamic between the two? Because they didn't really give us much. And more importantly, what did you think about just the town itself?
Okay. Well, the dynamic between the two were kind of weird just because, at first he seemed like a very simple guy. And then when he started talking to Harmony Cobell, then he started talking very weird, kind of like in Lumen dialect, if you ask me.
Like a corporate, yes.
Right. So that switch was weird. But the town, like you said, very rundown, looks very poor. And you would think if this is the town where Lumen kind of like build its roots, that you would expect more, but maybe Lumen doesn't pour back into this town. But I also remember we saw the building, and the building said, it said, Care Egan's Lumen Ether, there is a miracle cure for man. So it seems like some people there at least worship Care. And I wonder if the cure that they thought Care was going to bring is the cure for the sickness that they get from working in a factory with all that ether. You know what I mean? So like what cure are they expecting Care to bring? But yeah, the town looks really run down. You can tell it's just not flourishing. And I think that's the reason why I'm going to call him Hampton. I think that's his name. It's probably the reason why he's drug dealing, right? Because he has to make some P's on the end to make it, make things work out. But I think about like the opening shot. and then we see the water, we see like the waves hitting the rocks, and I think in distance we kind of get to see in the town,
Hmm.
kind of looks like the mountains that are in the photo in Milchick's
Right.
office, right? Milchick has a photo in his office of like a icy kind of mountain,
Okay.
but I'm like, didn't he inherit Miss Cobell's office? So did Miss Cobell put that in her office, or did she inherit it as well when she became the manager? And I'm like, is it Lumen paying homage to where everything started, or did she put the photo there to remind her where she came from, her hometown?
Right. Right. At this point, it might be the latter, right? Because you bring up a good point about, the town and having people who are still steadfast on their belief with Kier Egan, right? Into
Mhm.
Kier Egan, right? Still kind of a cult vibe, right? Because even when Cobell's speaking to Hampton, she kind of, mentions, hey, I need to, they'll recognize the vehicle as if there are people watching, you know, and obviously he drives her over to, where she used to live, her mother's home, and her aunt's there. We kind of see the reason as to why Hampton does not like
Sissy,
Cobell's
yeah,
aunt, Sissy.
mhm,
And Sissy is a hardcore believer, right?
mhm.
In Lumen, Kira Egan, and we kind of see why. And then we kind of get kind of this vulnerable side of Cobell, right? That Cobell really truly loved her mother in
Mhm.
a sense, right? Even trying to figure out where certain items were, going to and falling asleep with her mom's oxygen tank, which I believe it to be.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
we come to find out that her mom didn't even, and I know she mentioned it before about her mom. She called her a Christian, I believe, previously when she was having this discussion with Mark, but it sounds like she didn't believe in the Egan belief system compared to what most of the town believed in, and that's
yeah.
what Hampton kind of said he had in common. But my question to you is, what did you first make of Sissy, right? Where we see a plaque on the wall with her name, how she kind of what were your initial thoughts about Sissy and just that whole interaction between the two in the home?
Yeah, it was kind of shocking to me because I think about like season one, right? And I think about Miss Cobell having like that shrine with that like breathing mask for like her mom. And then I
Yeah,
thought maybe her mom kind of got her into this Lumen life. But obviously, you know, Sissy Celestine Cobell,
right,
right? She says that, like your mom didn't believe in the Egans, she didn't believe in Lumen, whatever. So Celestine Sissy is the Lumen follower. So that was a bit shocking to me. And then I guess, I mean, it would have been too many, flashbacks, but I guess I would have liked to see a little bit of the dynamic or hear a little bit more about the dynamic between Sissy and Harmony's mom. But
yeah,
I was kind of shocked that it was her aunt, who I perceive as her aunt. I think she looks too old to be like her sister. So I think
yeah.
it's her aunt was the one who kind of like got her in his life. And it looks like she's been a Lumen hardcore, supporter. I think she worked in like the factory or whatever you want to call it, the mill, as like a matron or something like that. Like you got patron, but they refer to it as like a might be mispronouncing the word, but matron, right?
Right.
So she's like a manager in some sense, a boss in some sense, and so she's really been going hard with this. It looked like she's been praised and awarded, and just how much she's into this was shocking to me because you mentioned a moment where Harmony is looking for, at the time, we don't know what she's looking for, right? But
Right.
the clue that she got was when she seen Sissy rubbing that weird looking rock that had like a
Yeah.
face carved of like care with like a
Claire Egan.
crying tear.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And that's when she's just like, ah, ha ha, I get it now. You know what I mean? So just a weird lady. But Hampton warned us before going over there. You know what I'm saying? I forgot his exact verbiage, but he basically said, "Hey, like, I don't really rock with her like that. She's kind of weird. She's on that time, and then I'm not on. You know what I mean?" But he still he still helped Harmony get over there, and we saw exactly why he felt that way, why he had that hesitation.
Yeah, yeah, and then and what I want to also bring us back to before we kind of move forward to the bombshell here, right, and what she actually found, or what Sissy ended up finding, right, or having in her possession, is Hampton brings up child labor,
Mm.
right, within these factories. What did you think was actually happening? What do you think Lumen's, I would say, ultimate goal was when they were working in that town specifically? Like, what did you think was taking place or what was occurring then that incorporated child labor? Was it the beginning of this fellowship? What was, what were your thoughts? Or even, and then on top of that, to make it even more layered, right? Hampton even brings up, potentially Carrie Egan's wife, right? Like she
Mhm.
coughed up a lung, essentially,
Yeah,
kind of insinuating that ether affected, that Carrie Egan household to some degree, right? So what were
yeah.
your thoughts about all that?
So I think that the child labor and the children working in the factories or the mines, whatever, they're not mines, but the children working around the ether, I think that
Yeah,
is just what it is on face value. I think it's just child labor, right? But
right,
I think the money that the Egans made from that is what then led to like the lumen that we see now. You know what I
right.
mean? But like 8-year-olds working around all that ether, it is just child labor. And as we see, I think the Egans kind of just have a thing for children. I don't know if it's because they feel like because they're young, they can easily be brainwashed. Because I feel like the child labor that they were doing with or maybe the ones who excel in working around the ether factories, maybe those were the ones that they think were able to translate to the Myrtle Egan school for that winter ship. Winter, what is it called?
It's
Like
like
the
a
winter
winter fellowship or some sort.
the
Kind
winter
of
fellowship, right? So maybe Miss Cobell did so good working in the mines. They're like, okay, this one's strong. Maybe she showed displays of the four tempers, and they said, okay, I think she would be good for the Wintertide Fellowship. You know what I
mhm,
mean? So which I think she went to, I'm assuming when she was 12, because that's when the marks on the wall at Sissy's house stopped, right? When she was
right.
measuring herself. So it seems like something happened after age 12. Either she just stopped or she wasn't there anymore. I'm assuming that's when she went to the Myrtle Egan School for Girls.
Yeah, yeah, and we actually get a confirmation that Miss Wong, going back a few episodes
Yep.
ago, where Milchick mentions like your fellowship is determined based off of how I kind of review you, right? So we can also assume that that's where Miss Wong comes from, right? To that
Hmm.
degree, that we kind of get that confirmation there, unless something else comes up.
Yeah.
But then we have this small intimate moment, where Cobell is probably we're probably ever going to see her like in terms of that moment of her being intimate, and kissing Hampton in the bed, and they kind of, she takes a sniff of the ether, right? She she
Super
she ends
weird.
up right. She ends up taking a sniff of the ether. She goes into a blissful hallucination, as a way to kind of, I guess, turn back the clock. But shortly afterwards, right, we get a massive bombshell. I don't want to use the term massive, right? But to me, it was very surprising, right? Very surprising. She comes downstairs, she gets a few items, and then there's a booklet that Sissy's holding on to, that she's reviewing, she's looking up. And this is basically a breakdown of the severed chips, how it functions, reintegration, the overtime policy, et cetera, et cetera. And, Cobell confronts her and basically admits that she was the creator, essentially being the creator of Severance. She is the one that created this tech, or at least is the genius behind it. And now it makes so much sense, and it ties everything together as to why she's trying so hard to get back. Because she's like, I created this thing, I should be at the forefront. And more importantly, it brings things full circle, because in season one, she was heavily pushing for reintegration, right? Where the board was like, no, reintegration is not a thing or shouldn't be a thing, and she kept pushing for it, right? And but I'll stop there. What was your initial thoughts when you watched the scene of her confronting her aunt, right? And her aunt being delusional, not can't even believe that Mrs. Cobell was essentially the genius behind Severance. And she even tries to burn it, right? That's how that's how crazy her aunt is. But go ahead. What were your thoughts?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I do think that was mind blowing. I do think it was a shocker, right? Crazy revelation. I would have never thought that Miss Cobell was the one who came up with this. I actually kind of thought it stemmed a bit further back. I thought it was a bit older, like it went, maybe before her time.
Right.
So I think it was crazy that she was the one who developed this. But now it makes sense why she was telling Helena, "You guys fear me," because she's probably like, "Hey, I'm the creator of this. I could either." She thinks, "Hey." I can do it somewhere else and replicate it, or I can do something to bring it down because I created this, you know. And like you said, she mentioned stuff like the overtime contingency, the Glasgow block, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that was shocking to me. And then, but I think Sissy knows this or is privy to it, but I think she's so brainwashed, she doesn't want to believe it. So initially, I think that's why she refutes it. But then later on, we see her try to burn it because I think that was
Yeah,
like
because she accepted.
acceptance. Like she knows it's true. Like I
Yeah,
I I know what you're saying, but I don't want it to be true. So I'm
so I
gonna
gotta
get
burn it.
exactly and get
And
rid
then
of
more
this.
importantly, not to cut you off, I felt like that was a moment because Cobell says the reason why I kept the head in is because of what they asked of me. They said, "Yo, you're going against Lumen if you announce you are the creator of this." And she in Sissy's way of keeping things or keeping the status quo intact is let me burn this so I can keep it going. You know, so it's kind of
Mhm.
like that situation, but which was funny. But then, of course, now it kind of leads this revelation. And to your point, the question that you asked me last video was, you know, do you think Cobell's going to turn? And I was like, nah, she's too. But now with this revelation and understanding that she's the creator of this, I'm like, yeah, she's definitely turning on them.
Yeah.
Is no reason not to, right? And I don't think, you know, and like you mentioned, I just thought, I don't know why, I just thought Lumen was around much longer than
Mhm.
what was depicted in the show. I thought this was just a
Well,
years of
Lumen was
building
around, but
things.
I thought the Severance thing maybe. Oh, I guess no. I guess they kind of announced when they started it, so I guess it made sense. I knew
Yeah, because
Lumen.
Lumen wasn't around for that long. Remember in the dinner, they announced like they only been around for like what 12 years or some sort,
I,
like
I got
15
I
years.
gotta I gotta go back and I gotta go back
Yeah, it
and
wasn't
check.
that long. It was definitely less than 20 years, and I would have
Yeah.
expected them to be,
Because I thought
to
for
exist
some
much
reason
longer.
I thought we saw something that said Kier founded it in like 1860 something. But granted, we don't know the time frame of when this show is taking place, right? So like this show is not necessarily and likely not taking place in 2025. You know what I mean? So
Right. So exactly. But what I think is that date that they're giving it to the innies. So the time
mm,
frame of what they're providing them is
I see.
propaganda versus the outside. We kind of get more of the details, right?
Okay.
And you bring up a good point about time because, like, I don't know if the time frame of what we're experiencing with the innies is the same time frame what we're experiencing with the outies. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So that's a whole nother
Yeah.
um rabbit hole there. But I
Yeah.
don't know. You
So
got any thoughts to add to that?
nah, it was something a bit different. I kind of want to go back to the scene in Harmony's room or her old room. There were some cards there, right? And
Mhm.
and the cards, they were a little strange, but one in particular said like we must be cut to heal. I think
Ah,
it's season one. If we go back to season one, she has like a poster or at least right, like a poster on her wall that says we
mm.
must be cut to heal. But then
And I feel like someone else says that too.
Milchick says it to Mark this season,
Oh,
earlier in the
okay.
season.
Milchick
We
says it. Okay.
we must be cut to heal. And do you think that's just
Yes.
a simple metaphor for like we have to go through pain, or when he say we have to be cut to heal, does he mean like we have to be severed to like maybe be whatever Lumen perceives as healed or proper? Do you know what I mean?
I would probably have to agree with you with that because I feel as though with what Gemma's going through, she's going through these series of trials and tribulations, right? With these different rooms, right? Let's take the dentist room, for instance, right? It
Mhm.
seems to be they're looking to sever people based off of traumatic experiences and seeing if it's bleeding over in their outies. And I feel like the bleed part, right, you must, you know, or cut to heal. Essentially, these innies are being cut in order for the outies to heal,
Mhm.
right? Now, unless it's something more sinister that has to do with Cold Harbor, right? In order
Yeah.
for that process to happen, is what their end goal is. But that's what I'm tying into when I hear that
Yeah.
phrase.
And speaking of Cold Harbor, it's Salt's Neck, the Cold Harbor. It looks pretty cold. I think that's it. Harbor. It
Mm.
probably could be classified as a harbor. So, do you think Salt's Neck is Cold Harbor, at least in terms of like metaphorically where the name came from?
Your guess is as good as mine. Maybe. I mean, it stands right because the cold harbor where it's at, the lake is there.
Hmm.
It's and it's the theme of cold, especially in these towns, seems to be a reoccurring thing. We see it where the Audi Mark lives, where Miss Cobell used to live, Cobell's town. Even in season 2, I believe episode 4, when they went to the retreat, everything seems to signify coldness, which
Hmm.
ties back to probably Cold Harbor.
Yeah,
I'm not sure exactly what the relationship would be
yeah,
specifically, but
yeah,
might be related.
yeah. I don't know if I said this last episode we did, but I probably did. Likely I did. Do you think the dentist guy is Bert's old partner from 20 years ago? Or
Um, I don't know. It could be anyone.
okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
right now, what we can tell is because this is the thing about the Gemma, right? In terms of timeline, he clearly was there working prior to Mark and Gemma being involved with Lumen. So he's been there for a while. But I would assume so was Mr. Drummond as well. But in terms of timeline wise, in terms of going back to the past, he's the person that we clearly, for a fact, we know was there back then. Could be
Mhm.
him. Who knows?
Okay.
Maybe they
Oh,
may try to insert someone else as a bombshell,
yeah.
but who knows?
Okay.
Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. Maybe. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Oh, I just couldn't remember if I said it or not. But let's not get back to episode 7. Let's stay on episode 8 here. So probably my favorite line of the episode, right? Hampton, he lets Miss Cobell get in the truck, and he says, "Come and tame these tempers." Right. So he's like whoever it is coming. I don't know if it's Drummond because Sissy said Drummond called, right? I feel like Drummond's not going to get his hands dirty to that extent. So if I had to guess, I'm thinking maybe the guy who was with Helena, her bodyguard,
The
coming.
driver, probably.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Getting a call from a strange number, but
You're gonna call for Mr. Drummond and Helena.
yeah, yeah. 716 number. So I'm like, but I'm like, I got G's number saved. So like, it can't, but that's the only person I could. But nevertheless, man, like, let's not let that interrupt this video. Um, so he's like, come and tame these tempers. And then we see the car pulling up. We see Miss Cobell getting out of there. Um, I kind of like Hampton's character, especially how the episode ended with him, like where he was at towards the end of the episode, but it doesn't seem armed. So I'm just not sure if he's gonna put up any kind of resistance here.
Yeah, right. Because I think you're probably on the same boat as me that the person driving more than likely might be a Lumen advocate or maybe someone directly from Lumen, or it could just be simply. But I feel like they would have revealed that if it was nobody, they would have shown it was nobody.
Yeah,
Right.
they'd have
I don't
gave us
think they would
that.
have
Yeah.
left it open ended. Yeah, so I think maybe it may come back around.
Mhm.
I'm hoping that they build off certain characters, start to introduce like what they did with Dr. Maurer, introduce characters. I was calling him Bauer last episode,
Mhm.
Maurer. So I got it correct this time around. But maybe introduce new characters or new affiliates within the Lumen industry, right? So I
Yeah,
mean, who's
and
to
then
say at this point?
let's talk about the very ending. So, like we saw episode 7, that Devin was going to attempt to call Miss Cobell, and Ragabi was like, "If you call that woman, I'm out of here." So they obviously know each other, but we know that Ragabi has intel on Lumen, right? But
Right.
now, fast forward to the end of this episode, Devin's called a couple times. Miss Cobell takes the call, and then Devin breaks it to Miss Cobell that Mark's being reintegrated. Miss Cobell instantly knows Ragabi. So where do you think Miss Cobell and Ragabi know each other from?
I think I think Ragabi worked with her in the past, potentially. I think they would have to, right? In order for, especially knowing that Lumen hasn't been around for that long, right? Haven't been around for hundreds of years. And with Severance and how the Severance chip works, it's very sophisticated. So I would assume that Ragabi probably worked with Cobell in order to make this chips work, or maybe she was involved in the process, maybe a secondary support in that process along the way, but clearly she was involved in some capacity, right, in
Yeah,
order to have the understanding of flooding the chip and going through the reintegration process. Because what we know is Miss Cobell obviously knows what the reintegration process is. And initially in season 1, the board didn't even think it was really possible in a sense. So Cobell, it seems like Cobell and Ragabi knows more about reintegration than the board knows about reintegration, or at
Yeah.
least they're learning more about it. But that's just my thoughts.
Could not Miss could Ragabi have potentially gone through the Myrtle Egan Wintertide Fellowship the same time as Miss Cobell? Could that be have
Mm,
could that have been when they met? And then to your point, could they have worked on creating Severance together? And then as they were working on it, they had to think about like how can we also reverse this, right? But maybe they never finalized how to reverse it, but they started working on it, which is how Ragabi knows how to do these things. And maybe when she practiced with PD, it was the first time she took the incomplete research that they've done and tried to, reintegrate someone, because like they obviously know each other, right? And
yeah.
it's not just like, oh, I heard of that person. It's like pressing, like, hey, it's on site, but you know what I mean. That's how it seems to
Yeah.
me. So I'm just
As if
wondering, could
one or the other betrayed each other, at least as if Ragabi got betrayed by Miss Cobell, or
yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
But go ahead. Yep.
or maybe Mr. Ragabi, like, or not Mr. Ragabi, maybe Ragabi was like, all right, this is going against my ethics and my morals. Now it's going too far. I have to walk away from this. And maybe that's why she's just like, that woman is like evil. You know what I'm saying? So she's a lumen because maybe Ragabi said, hey, no, this isn't right. Like ethically, this is wrong. And maybe Miss Cobell kept going with it. And Ragabi's like, nah, she's nothing but a lumen follower. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it would be good for the story, right? In terms of, maybe they were friends, but I don't think Ragabi went through a fellowship. I don't know. Something tells me she didn't go through that process.
Mhm.
Just the way she talks, her approach to things. Because even with Cobell, with her creating Severance, and you could tell now that she's kind of now turning to go against Lumen. Just the something about her still screams to me Lumen employee, right? So I don't know. I personally, if I
Yeah.
had to bet, I think they met in some other capacity where they
Mhm.
definitely worked together, I believe, but not through probably when they were younger as kids through a fellowship program, maybe when they were a
Okay.
little older and they started implementing the Severance. But I'm not gonna lie, I would love that theory. Like that would be a great theory, and that would be something I would love to watch, honestly,
Okay.
because you can
Oh,
really build off that and introduce other characters from when they're younger and then reintroduce them as they're older.
mhm.
Honestly,
Yeah.
that could be a whole little spin-off in and of itself. That would be that would be dope.
Yeah. Okay. 2 more episodes to go in the season. Still feel like as much as I know and we have uncovered, that we still barely know anything. Like it's so many loose ends to tie up. Like I don't know how they're gonna tie all these up. I don't know how many more seasons we have coming, but it's like there's so many loose ends. We've been given so many tad bits. I don't know how they're gonna tie all this stuff up, but I have faith in them. I have faith in the writing. I have faith in Severance. But this video is almost as long as the episode, so make sure you guys subscribe. Make sure you guys like and comment with your theories. Um, I gotta go make one of those, like showbiz is like tinfoil hat for my theories, and so I gotta go make one of those tinfoil hats, before next before next episode, so I can keep the theories coming. But like I said, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. 2 cents short of $1. More videos coming soon.